Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to this special 5-part series on Adventures in Compliance. One of my favorite authors is A. Conan Doyle, and I love the Sherlock Holmes stories. I see lots of lessons for the compliance practitioners in these stories. So I'm going to explore these over the next 5 days. I'm going to take a look at 5 stories and use those as introductions into a compliance or compliance-related topic. I know you will enjoy this podcast series. First, a word from our sponsor, the Compliance Masterclass. I'm pleased to announce a 2-day Compliance Masterclass, which is unlike any other compliance class currently being offered. This session will be held in New York City on November 12 and 13. It will be hosted by Jonathan Marks and Baker and Tilley. The Compliance Masterclass is not a theoretical or analytical presentation of the FCPA. The focus of the Compliance Masterclass is on the operationalization of compliance. For it is only in the doing of compliance that companies have a real chance for avoiding FCPA liability. The Compliance Masterclass provides a unique opportunity for any level of compliance practitioners, from the seasoned CCO to the compliance practitioner new to the profession. If you are looking for a training class to turbocharge your knowledge on the nuts and bolts of a best practices compliance program, this is the class for you to attend. For more information, check out my website, www.fcpacompliancereport.com, or email me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Adventures in Compliance is a special presentation of the Compliance Podcast Network. Nearly every character in Sherlock Holmes is a storyteller. Storytelling is a crucial part of the entire detective fiction genre, and the Sherlock Holmes stories really explore this aspect. Each tale begins with a new case, which is always narrated by a participant, and all ends with some sort of confession explanation scene. While we are on this journey with both Holmes and Watson, they encounter tons of different people and listen to their stories. In a way, these cases that Holmes and Watson solve are like giant umbrella stories composed of dozens of smaller stories being told by characters. Episode 1, The Adventure of the Red Circle. In this story, Holmes solves the immediate mystery in front of him as told by the landlady of a boarding house. The first mystery is that a lodger has not been seen for over 10 days, always staying in his room and only communicating with oblique messages such as soap, match, daily gazette, printed on a torn piece of paper. But Holmes divines a greater mystery as it turns out the lodger is not a man but a woman whose life is under threat, and her male traveling companion can only communicate with her through references to newspaper columns. Holmes stated to Watson, "Education never ends, Watson. It is a series of lessons with the greatest for the last. This is an instructive case. There is neither money nor credit in it, and yet one would wish to tidy it up. When dusk comes, we shall find ourselves one stage advanced in our investigation." This story illustrates a couple of key points for every CCO and compliance practitioner. The first is listening. Not only is listening a key part of any leadership skill, but listening will bring you a much better picture of your compliance program, its faults, and its successes. The reason is that your own employees are your company's best source of information about what is going on in the company. It is a best practice for a company to listen to its own employees, particularly to help improve processes and procedures. This type of listening extends to internal reporting system, as a company should provide a safe and secure route for employees to escalate their concerns. This underlying rationale behind an anonymous reporting system within any organization. Both the U.S. Sentencing Guidelines and the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, Good Practices, list as one of their components an anonymous reporting mechanism by which employees can report compliance and ethics violations. Of course, the Dodd-Frank whistleblower provisions also give heed to the implementation of a hotline. The second compliance pointer the red circle illustrates is communication. For just as education never ends for Holmes, it should never end for a compliance practitioner. Your communication on compliance should never end either. Louis Sapperman, the former chief compliance officer at Dun & Bradstreet, calls this a 360-degree approach to communications. It is not simply that communications should no longer be viewed as vertical. It is that everything you do as a compliance professional, the way you act, the way people see you, is that you are always communicating. It's not simply communicating to one another as often as you may well be communicating to a group across siloed boundaries, to constituencies with whom you have not even planned to initially communicate. There are several concepts which should be included in your 360-degree view of compliance communications. Begin with an objective, identify the purpose of your communication, and target of whom you are going to communicate with. Identify as clearly as you can the purpose and reason to ensure your message is aligned with your objectives. For instance, you are implementing a 360-degree view of communication to educate, inform, change perceptions, or build trust and commitment, or something else. Next, the audience. To communicate effectively, you need to understand your audience. In any corporation, there are multiple audiences who are the key stakeholders in the 360-degree process. How much do they know? Some of the stakeholders, including the boards of directors, senior management, middle management, employees, committees, coaches, facilitators, customers, business partners, vendors, sales agents, representatives, strategic alliance, partners, and business ventures. What are your distribution channels and how are you tracking your messaging? Should you create a comprehensive method to track your messages, the intended audience, and the delivery mechanism? Another key ingredient of the 360-degree approach is feedback. This is a key component of the experience and educates each stakeholder on the benefits of feedback from the 360-degree approach. Finally, you will need to evaluate what you have done. You can monitor your communications activities by tracking attendance at events, website statistics, open rates of emails, downloads of materials, video hits. In other words, the same techniques that your marketing folks would use to determine their messaging's effectiveness. The objective is to build trust for the 360-degree process by determining if the goal is achieved. You can utilize surveys or focus groups to assess the impact on your target audience. By focusing on your customers of compliance, in other words, your employees, it allows you to identify gaps and improve the communication process for your compliance program. Using such a 360-degree approach allows a CCO to literally see around corners and can be one of the greatest strengths of a best practices compliance program. The reason is listening, and there are certainly many ways to listen. You can sit in your office and wait for a call or a report on the hotline, or you can go out in the field and find out what challenges your employees are facing. From this, you can work to craft a solution that works for the company and holds the company's ethical and compliance values. Hope you've enjoyed this presentation of the Red Circle and communication, and I hope you will join me tomorrow where I take up the adventures of the Abbey Grange and institutional justice. This is Tom Fox. I'd like to thank you for listening to this Adventures in Compliance special podcast. If you have any questions on the matters brought up in this podcast, you can shoot me an email at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. I have a special request. If you've listened to this podcast on iTunes, please leave a review, as it would help in our ratings and help get the word out about this very special podcast series. Adventures in Compliance has been produced by and is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network.